I'm getting many letters from you now because you're feeling the transformative energies intensely and you're afraid of going crazy. And a few of you are naturally right at the start of your transformation, so it is completely understandable that you are scared of what is happening in that situation. Others, on the other hand, have journeyed far on their spiritual path, and the big secret is also experiencing the nitty-gritty now. We are all not predestined. We have very positive aspects, but we also have very challenging aspects. We talk about both here today, because I say very clearly, you are not going crazy, but you are awakening. And I believe I can also say that. So first of all, greetings to you. My name is Linda Gysi, founder of the Being Potential Method, where we determine the soul plan of our participants. I work daily with the blueprint of the soul of our participants, and I can truly and clearly see and say that awakening is our birthright. And not only that, it is even our spiritual goal that we strive to achieve through the Being Potential Method. To know more about your soul's blueprint, check it out. I've included a link for you in the info box. He invites you to our next free live show. I'll be happy if you want to participate in it next week. So at this moment, we are delving deeply into our process of spiritual reawakening. And this is truly a magical and often a really psychedelic looking process. However, one can usually only enjoy in phases when one has understood that the triggered issues challenging us lead us through our ego deaths. Yes, and that is generally the moment that often feels like we are going crazy and losing our sanity. However, what drives us insane, terrifies us, makes us feel powerless or something like that, is the resistance against what is happening or what exists. And thus also the resistance that arises when we are unwilling to let go of what we simply do not want to give up. And indeed affirmative, but also in opposition to the act of releasing our notion of how it ought to be. And honestly, I know that from myself as well. Some processes, I go through them quite easily. And in other processes, I run around like a tiger in a cage or squirm like an eel, not even realizing that I have completely caught myself in the resistance loop against letting go of things that no longer serve me. Yes, exactly. We still do that ourselves. It's an extra aspect. Actually, it's pretty crazy, yes. Letting go of some things, that's also so tricky. It often lies on a level that is so inexplicable to us that we can't see the forest for the trees. And yes, we also react in a completely different way, yes. And honestly, anger, annoyance, self-righteousness, or playing the victim are the least important aspects of it. It becomes much more problematic when certain individuals react with physical, intense symptoms or are confronted with mental confusions and uncertainties. Naturally, I assume that you are responsible enough to reach out to a professional if you have any issues that require clarification or need professional assistance. That being said, I would now like to take a closer look at the topic of awakening, as I believe that it is the underlying factor for the majority of individuals and the root cause of all these symptoms. So in order to do that, we may need to examine the state of awakening more closely. We can also comprehend awakening as if we were stepping out of a part of ourselves, specifically the part identified with the world of matter, the physical body, thoughts, dramas, the rat race, recognition, rebellion, the past, fears, and perhaps some more things that come to mind now and resonate with our journey towards self-realization, inner transformation, and the profound realization of our true nature and the interconnectedness of all beings. So speak wherever you believe yourself to be obligated to the reality of forms, things, and stories. That is the subject matter we are currently discussing. Maybe some of you are thinking, Linda, that's not new. I already knew that. Let me tell you, awakening is not attainable with mere knowledge or intellect. We die, so to speak, into our awakening that has to be experienced. And yes, at some points, one can also have a genuine feeling that it's damn brutal. Simply because the part within us that feels attached to something, we always casually refer to it as the ego, so this part is entirely fear-based. And we can genuinely grasp the fact that this ego is often derived from traumatic situations or otherwise established on a perception of one's own self or worldview, which can be shaped by personal experiences, cultural influences, and societal norms. And this component within us ultimately, it solely experiences a sense of safety when it is attached, identified, and connected in a meaningful way. If you remove what he is presently associated with, it will stumble aimlessly in a state of complete helplessness and encounter intense fears of death. And in order to avoid that, it clings desperately to whatever it can in the struggle for survival. And this compelled act of letting go through the process of awakening, it often triggers resistance, yet the state of awakening will ultimately prevail, yes. When we are in the midst of this struggle, I would say, or process, yes, then it can often evoke vivid and profound psychedelic perceptions that can deeply impact our perception of reality and expand our consciousness in profound ways. Or mental confusion as well as physical discomfort. The more we resist, because resistance slows down the process, leading to distortions which manifest as psychedelic perceptions, confusion, and physical symptoms. These are the phases where we think we're going crazy or we can't take it anymore, or however you label it for yourself. The issue at hand is that, more often than not, we find ourselves trying to calm down the processes in a completely reactionary or impulsive manner, which is understandable given the circumstances we face. Yes, of course, we can't bear it, so we try somehow to slow down the process, to soothe it, to discharge it. And then we use different methods. So either we breathe our feelings away, or we meditate ourselves into a stoic calm, or we talk ourselves into everything being nice with a chirpy voice. We distract ourselves in various ways. Our tools are quite different. Or we ask our coach for a tip on what we can do to better endure this restlessness, fear, sadness, shame, despair, or whatever it may be within us, to really get a handle on it or something similar. You most likely have a sense of it. That is not the manner in which the process of awakening operates. The main point is not to get out of there, but to go in. The ego is the part that fights and resists the most. Your being wants to awaken, and that means letting go of resistance and thus accompanying the ego's process of dying until it has healedly integrated within you. This is also a misconception that is often mentioned, that we must let go of or get rid of the ego. Nonsense. The ego must integrate within you. The ego must let go. Yes, true, so it integrates in a healing way. However, the ego is akin to a detached part of oneself. It is highly valuable when it integrates in a healing manner within an individual, and it also possesses many advantages. When we take all of this into consideration, it is truly fascinating to see how life, especially in the current moment, can take such sharp and unexpected turns that defy our expectations. Don't you think? And at this moment, it also provides an explanation for why so many of us are being impacted by these completely unexpected moments that literally turn our world upside down. So what seemed completely logical yesterday is now unthinkable today, and tomorrow one hopes for a solution, but instead the complexity of the impossible only grows. Therefore, irrespective of the direction in which you turn, such an immense level of flexibility is required from us, coupled with a perpetual need to let go and effectively deal with unforeseen and astonishing issues that can genuinely make one feel overwhelmed, particularly if one belongs to the type of individuals who have a tendency to hold on tightly to things. By the way, everyone experiences these dramas on their very own personal playing fields. That truly feels terrible, but as I promised, there's also something positive, and that's what we'll talk about now. Because the crazy thing is, on the contrary, there is this side where unexpected plot twists enable us to perceive or experience things that we never would have thought were achievable or within the realm of possibility. So we obtain access to perceptions, experiences, opportunities, contacts, a flow in life that is fascinating because it truly, yes, sometimes seems not of this world, like a miracle, yes, beyond our comprehension, beyond what we could have ever imagined or expected. And all of a sudden, we are able to comprehend a level of complexity that our mind just cannot effectively process. And yet, there's a holistic perception available. I'm convinced that this succeeds precisely because the mind capitulates. In other words, lets go, because it's simply too complex for it to grasp everything. Yes, and as a result, he interferes less often. So, if you suddenly notice how the inner resistance stops, the need to give logical explanations and name everything, all that chatter, whether internally or externally, simply because your mind gives up and surrenders to the spiritual, then it becomes calm and bright. And then you're also going through such an awakening process, maybe through a facet or through a proper process, depending on where you stand. And I have a vivid recollection of when it happened to me for the very first time, right in the midst of a phase characterized by darkness and absolute despair. It was such a profound experience, so terrible that I genuinely believed the brightness would never return. But then, unexpectedly, I found myself in the midst of my spiritual awakening, and it was truly remarkable. It was simple, simply because I couldn't continue. I was extremely exhausted, incredibly desperate. The darkness was overwhelming. I couldn't continue. I surrendered. At that particular moment, I genuinely contemplated the idea of succumbing to death due to overwhelming despair and sorrow. And I thought, okay, then I will simply die at this moment. And in that particular moment, when I release all control, I found myself unexpectedly, yet simultaneously and effortlessly, in a state of pure tranquility, and had an absolutely blissful and profoundly quiet experience, an experience that was truly extraordinary and beyond words. In the past, I used to think, now I am finished, now I am knowledgeable. At a certain juncture, when I had reevaluated things, but I hold the belief, yes, and that is also something that I have gained knowledge about on my journey throughout my life. That awakening, yes, is merely a never-ending journey, and we can constantly delve further. An awakening cannot be forced or achieved through a specific method. Even if, for instance, meditation, mindfulness exercises, spiritual practice are interwoven into spiritual awakening, so integrated that is already. But in principle, we cannot derive one method to awaken. The nature of awakening is completely individual. So there are individuals who encounter it in an extremely sudden and unexpected manner. For some, it is like a tsunami, an avalanche that overwhelms you. For other individuals, it can be extremely gentle and also a highly slow and gradual process. Yes, and ultimately that's exactly why I said that it's an eternal process. It is like a pendulum, constantly swinging back and forth between consciousness and the unconsciousness. And you sit on the ball of the pendulum. And then you swing in there very consciously, very awakened, and then you swing back into the unconscious. And then you swing back and forth between all that is familiar to you, what you know, how intelligent you are, and the insights and knowledge you have gained. Yes, absolutely. And then also towards the unknown and all that, where you still have a lot to learn, experience, and explore. Yes, definitely. So there are a variety of pendulum swings, by the way, in all directions, on which we learn to understand and recognize ourselves. Be generous with yourself when you fall into old traps, even if you thought you were already beyond them, into old patterns. That is merely a portion of it. Awakening has no connection to being holy and doing everything correctly, being more holy than the Pope, being without flaws, and being completely perfect. 0.0. Spiritual awakening is a very consistent process of realization and self-awareness that also comes with a lot of humility, clarity, focus, love, compassion, but also setting boundaries. Yes, and it's a remarkably quiet process that often gives the impression of being unbelievably loud, despite its actual noise level. Yes, I hope it helps you. Let's release the need to understand and categorize everything. Having a basic understanding that enables one to be born into the process, to have the ability to allow the new time and acquire just enough knowledge to navigate through it. With love, the most beautiful gift for you, your sister in spirit, Linda.